So excited to be here tonight. We are Soccer Resilience, and we get to kick off our partnership with the South Texas Association. Really excited to be here for many reasons. And one of those is you'll get to hear from some people who have some strong ties to South Texas. But we're really excited tonight that we're going to ask you just to mute yourself during the conversation. But when we ask you for thoughts, we'd love to hear. You can put it in the chat, you can unmute yourself, and we'll have time at the end for questions as well. And we're here to help bolster not just your mental health, but your mental fitness, helping you have that resilience on the field and off the field.
Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen in a moment. We're going to get into formal introductions when I do that. So give me a moment. Brad, are we seeing that? We're seeing the right
I'm
screen
seeing
today?
it.
All right, let's go. Look at that. Who's that front row and center in this graphic? I don't know. All right, why don't we start with intros? And Brad, you can kick us off.
All right, so I'm going to be the only one on this call who actually wore those groovy white shorts you see on the left, but don't worry, you're not going to have to wear those. It's not going to be in your kit anytime soon. That was a long time ago. My name's Dr. Brad. I'm a clinical psychologist, founder of Soccer Resilience. So excited to be here tonight because I've had the privilege of working with youth college pro athletes and their families for over 20 years. And why is this such a passion for me? It really comes from my playing days in college. Local kid in high school, got recruited to go play at Wake Forest University, one of the top men's Division I programs in the country. Dream come true for me. I had a lot of work to do, and so I did. I climbed the ladder slowly. It took me 5 seasons where I finally got big starts and big games. It was really rewarding. We won the ACC championship. So if my story stops there, you're like, well, that's kind of a feel-good story. But the part I haven't shared with you is from the first practice of preseason in college, I struggled with performance anxiety. I think I wanted it so bad, my brain got hijacked a lot. I struggled with self-doubt. I would worry about making mistakes. When I did, I'd be stuck in them. And it really affected my confidence, my joy in performance. And I thought that I was weak, thought I was soft and defective because I was having these struggles with performance anxiety. I didn't think anybody else did. So I suffered in silence and it didn't get any better. But when I graduated, I wanted to be a psychologist. I love helping people learn ways to overcome challenges, and especially had a special place for working with athletes to give them those tools where they can learn to manage not just performance anxiety, but be more resilient and to have more fun and get their performance where they want to be. And so that's what brings us here tonight, that sort of pain and frustration I went through, really using that as my passion to work with all of you. And tonight we're going to give you some great tips and tools to help you build your mental health and your mental fitness.
Awesome. Well, I'll introduce myself. I'm Diego Bocanegra. I've been with Soccer Resilience kind of in some type of capacity for better part of about a year and a half, 2 years. But recently, I became one of the owners as well. And the reason I'm so passionate about this, I spent most of my adult life as a soccer coach. You can see I was a head coach at the University of Houston. I also coached with the Houston Dash, Notre Dame, and U.S. Soccer. Funny thing is, I was making this, I looked, and our next guest, or I shouldn't say guest, our ambassador, our host right here, I actually got to work with Carrie at a couple of these places, and it was awesome being able to be her coach. But I saw as a coach, by investing in the mental side of things, how impactful it was for my players. But I have a more passionate reason. I have a 15-year-old daughter. I have a 12-year-old son. They both deal with anxiety and have suffered from panic attacks. And a handful of years ago, we started giving them techniques and tools to deal with them. And the amount of growth I've seen is amazing. So this is a passion for me. And I want to kick it over to our special guest, our ambassador, Kara Carl.
Hey everyone. Nice to meet you all. I am a current professional soccer player for the Chicago Red Stars. I have been playing for 9 years in the National Women's Soccer League. And like Diego said, I went to Notre Dame and was drafted to the Houston Dash and played there for a few years before jumping to North Carolina and LA and then Chicago. So I've moved around a bit. I am a player who's just super competitive. I love to be out on the field. I love soccer so much. I've been playing for almost 27 years now, and um, it's been my life in so many ways, but I think I wish I had the mental fitness and tools that I now have, because I think I would have gotten a little bit more fulfillment in my career earlier on throughout high school, college, and my early professional days. I kind of figured it out later on in my career, but it's something that I'm super passionate about because now I get to pass that along to soccer players and coaches that can now change the way they think about the game and have their own self-worth regarding their performance in soccer, which is something I did not really have and had to learn those tools and strategies later on in my career. So I think it's the best feeling to be able to pass that on to people younger than me so they don't have to learn the hard way and they can have really fulfilling careers now.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited because you're going to hear a lot from Carrie as we go through today's presentation. And what the goal for today is, we're going to give you some tips and tools that you can implement right away, whether you're a player, whether you're a parent, whether you're a coach. You're going to be able to take this and not just put them into your game, but use them as skills for life. So before we get into that, Brad, why don't you talk a little bit about our ambassadors and kind of what makes Soccer Resilience special?
Yeah, something that we're so grateful for is we have a great team at Soccer Resilience. And when you get our online courses or these webinars, you're going to hear from pros as well. You can see that person in the upper left. You probably recognize her, Carrie. And we have a lot of other pros here as well. And, we don't just take any professional player, whether in the NWSL, USL, MLS. We look for players like Carrie who have a passion for wanting to help the youth players grow their mental health, strengthen their mental fitness, and they also invest in it and use those tools. You're going to hear a lot from Carrie today. And as you do, you're like, wow, that's awesome. And you can find more things from Carrie and pros in our courses as well.
Awesome.
All right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So our first question tonight is, what % do you think the mind plays in performance and life?
So now, if you look at your chat, we've launched a question. I want you to just click on that. What do you see? Really simple, but what percentage do you think the mind plays in performance and life? And Brad, I don't know if you're seeing this, but if you click on your polls, you can see it.
I see it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So what we have a lot of people, which is what we see a lot too, is that most people are saying at least about 70% or higher. And so there's no right or wrong answer. Whatever that number is that if it's even 10%, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, it clearly plays such an important role. Then you're obviously doing lots of things to work on your mental game, right? Well, what we find is that we often aren't working on our mental game because we haven't been taught how. And that's what we're going to start with tonight, is giving you lots of tools on how to strengthen your confidence, bouncing back from mistakes, and to be resilient.
Awesome. So why train your brain? Now, this is the coach in me. If you're a soccer player or a coach, every time you go out on the field, you probably work on the technical. You get touches on the ball. You work on the tactical, your positioning, where should you be, formations, the physical, that's your fitness levels, your strength. But what do you do, or what are you doing to work on the psychological? If these are the 4 pillars of soccer, I have psychological circled because it is the most often overlooked. And the main reason is, or at least what we hear is, we don't know where to start. We don't know how to teach it. Well, don't worry. We're going to go through that today. So, Brad, let's talk about this.
All right. So if we want to harness the power of our mind, right, we need to understand how it works. So what do you think is the brain's #1 job? We've got 4 options there. Is it to help us breathe, to think, to keep us alive, or to control our body? What do you think?
Apparently, I didn't set up the poll properly because I gave him 2 questions in there. So that's my fault.
All right. Well, it looks like we've got, okay, so it looks like our kind of top 2 are to keep us alive and control our body. Well, it is definitely important for the brain to help control our body, but the #1 job is to keep our brain alive, right? The job is to keep us alive. If we're not able to keep ourselves alive, then however great we are at dance, skateboard, playing goalie, playing center back, karaoke, we won't be here to enjoy it, right? So our brain has to be really, really good at doing that. Well, how does it keep us alive? The answer comes from thousands of years ago. We go back in the time machine when we lived in caves and there were saber-tooth tigers. Life was really scary every time we left the cave, right? We're slow, tasty, saber-tooth tigers, big, fast, big claws, right? It was scary. The only chance of survival we had when we left the cave is our brain had to be super good at having this awesome alarm system at noticing danger. It had to notice it in the present, even when things were okay. It had to predict and forecast and guess where the danger was going to be in the future. And if we ran across the saber tooth and somehow made it back to the cave alive, our brain would never let us forget what happened. It would replay it over and over and over again for days and days and days, so it wouldn't go back in harm's way. So that was a great way our brain worked to keep us alive when there were saber-tooth tigers. Obviously good news, no saber-tooth tigers, but the downside is our brain is still hardwired exactly the same. So exactly how negative is our brain? What percent do you think of our daily thoughts are negative? Now, this is not just you and me, but the average person on the average day, we have that down there. What percent do you think of our daily thoughts are negative? If you scroll down that poll, you'll see, down
Number
the last
three.
question, what do you think? What percent of our daily thoughts are negative? Okay, I love how you're all participating. Thanks so much for jumping in. Looks like we've got a lot of ideas, so 50 and 70 and 80. So luckily everybody's sitting down. For those who are driving, keep your hands on the steering wheel because the answer is 80%. 80%. Think about that for a second. That means we are hardwired, factory installed from birth, Trinity Rodman, Messi, everybody, to have 4 negative thoughts in our head to every 1 positive thought. That is a lot of negativity, right? So if you've ever wondered, why do I get so nervous the night before a test or a game? And why does my brain keep putting in all the reasons I'm going to do poorly for every 1 reason I'm going to do well? It's how my brain's wired. Same thing on game day. You feel kind of nervous. It's tough to eat because your brain's forecasting all the things that will go wrong way more than what's going well. Then during a game, Carrie's got the ball. I'm open. I got space. I'm like, great news. She's about to pass me. The ball's coming to me. And all of a sudden I get tight and I have a bad first touch because my brain's imagining 4 mistakes I'm going to make for every 1 thing I'm going to do well with the ball. And the brain's not done after the game. Oh yeah, after the game, even when you played well. And maybe even your coach and parents like, hey, good job today. But you made a couple mistakes. Your brain will focus way more on those than what you did well. And it's exhausting. So Carrie, as a professional athlete, I'm sure you never have negative thoughts in your head. What are something that kids can do to help them manage the brain's negative bias?
It's so funny that you just said that. We're just so much more likely to focus on what goes wrong than what goes well. Before I answer your question, I played a game last night in the NWSL and I had a really good game. But it's funny, like I got a couple text messages from my parents and like people that were like, "Oh, you played well, like good job." But I scored an own goal. And so for me, I left and I came home just thinking like, "Oh my gosh, I blew it and what I kind of like messed up the momentum for the team and like all these really negative thoughts." And I've had to like kind of go backwards and do the work of reminding myself like that was just one part of a very long soccer game. And I had to actively try to remember like all the things I did do well. And I was super proud of myself because the own goal came in the beginning of the game and I didn't really let it derail me while I was playing. And I was like, let me get on the ball, let me try to connect my next pass. And you have to like actively tell yourself that and do that. So you don't kind of go into your cave and like protect yourself from the danger, which is, it's definitely been a learned skill of mine and soccer resilience has been very helpful with that. And now to answer your question about 2 things I specifically learned from you, Brad, about like what I can do to help. I really like before the game, I like to go by myself and do some deep breathing. And I do it actually like when I'm in the locker room because I feel like that's when my nerves start to get a little bit more heightened. So I'll actually go into a bathroom stall and like I'm by myself in the quiet and I'll I'll breathe in, like deep, long breathing. I'll breathe in for 4 seconds, and then I'll hold it for 4 seconds, and then I'll let it out really slow for 4 seconds. And you taught me that, and you said do it for 2 minutes and it'll kind of like help calm you. So that helps me kind of just like get a little bit of my nerves out. And then I also do this thing that you taught me called the triple P's, which is predict, plan, practice. And when I try to explain this to people, I'm like, well, I don't want you to just like assume everything's going to go wrong and you're going to have a terrible game, but you do want to like have a plan for the worst case scenario. So if I'm really nervous that okay, I'll give you a real life example. Throughout the week this week, I was trying to hit long balls over the top to my forward, and some of them were just like not going super far. And so they were a little too short and I couldn't get enough like length on them. And so I tell myself with the predict, plan, practice, I predict in the game, okay, you might not have a perfect long ball every single time. And then the plan for that is, okay, if you underhit your long ball, don't like get down on yourself, get the next pass, try to like wind up a little bit further and try to like take a little bit more ground so then you can hit it even further down the field. Try not to like hit it so far back near your own goal. And then you put that into practice. And this happened last night in the game. It's like, okay, I underhit a ball. I didn't panic because I knew I had this plan. I was like, oh, I predicted this may or may not happen, but it did. And I have my plan. And then I put it into practice. So it kind of just like eases a little bit of the anxiety of like this fear of the unknown. Like, what am I going to do if this terrible thing happens? It's like, okay, well, if I have a plan, if this terrible thing happens, then I put it into practice and I don't feel as like scared, I guess. So those are my two that are really, really
Oh
helpful
my
for.
goodness. I love this because I know how much you've worked with Brad, and I know just your process because I've been, well, coached you and then follow you for, it's been a long time now. And to
Mhm.
hear you say that and do that, it's really encouraging because this didn't happen overnight, right, Carrie?
No, no.
This was lots of progress, lots of practice, lots of getting your mental reps in.
Yeah,
Um,
it does
and
take reps because you're not perfect at first. And that's something he taught me in the beginning too, is like, you're not just gonna like breathe for 3 days and be like, well, it doesn't work. And it's like, well, you have to like do it for a little bit and it really does help. And I'm someone that's like super competitive and a lot of my self-worth was tied into like if I performed well and all this type of stuff. And it's like you can still grow and get better and play well and also make mistakes and have a plan to like continue to be brave. Like it can all exist at once. And I had to really learn that. And it's allowed me to just enjoy playing so much more.
oh, that's awesome because it does lead into one of the takeaways that we want to share with everyone here. And Brad, obviously I started sharing my screen again, but why don't you talk a little bit about this? Where what does it mean to be present and to focus on process? So Carrie just gave us a great example of triple
Mhm.
P's, but why don't you talk a little bit about this and something that our players, parents, and coaches can start putting into their game right away?
Yeah, so the two things we want to do to help us have better mental fitness and better mental health is we want to try to steer our mind towards the present, be more in the present moment, and focus more on the actions, the things that we can control, focusing on the process of growing and improving, steering our mind away from focusing on outcomes, which it is definitely hardwired to do. So that first part, present, right? That we are only present about 52% of the time on average. That means about half the time our brain is like thinking in the future. It could be 1 second, 5 seconds, 10 years, or stuck in the past. So it's really hard to be in the present. And if we want to have optimal performance, your superpower is being fully engaged in the present, right? When we want to have optimal performance, have that high level of skill matched with our being fully engaged in the present, that's how we get the best out of ourselves. So we can give you some tools to help you get your mind more in the present. And that second part is our brain's hardwired to go outcome, outcome, outcome. And that really adds more stress because we can't control outcomes. We want to focus on what we can control, our effort and our actions. And we're going to give you some tools to do that too.
Awesome. So, Carrie, I want to know how, well, let's just talk about the past a little bit. Do you think your number was 52%, or did you live like less in the present and more in the future and more in the past? Like, think about
Yeah.
times when you were maybe struggling and then now what it looks like now.
I think I lived a lot in the past, and I will say I feel like that's still a weakness of mine. Where like I said last night, like I came home from a game and was like, oh, like dwelling on a game. But it was way worse when I was in college, to the point where like people would be like, let's go get ice cream. And I'm like, no, I mustn't get ice cream. We lost the game. And it's just like, why am I dwelling on something that I can't control? So what's really helped me now is to control everything I can and do the best I can, and then leave it, knowing that I did everything I could to be successful, and that in some way I grew from that, win or lose. If I tried my best, I worked as hard as I could, and I enjoyed myself, because that's like why we all play, is to somehow find a reason to smile on the field. That I'm like, it was a good day. And even yesterday, it's like my team lost. I scored an own goal. I underhit some passes. I enjoyed playing. I got better. I learned how to like fix my mistakes for next time. And I keep it going. And I'm like, okay, I get to do this for fun. So definitely more of a present person now, but I do have slip ups, but yeah, it's way nicer to just live in the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, I knew the answer to that because I remember when you were at Notre Dame and when we were there, and some of the times where you would come to practice sometimes angry the next day
Oh
from
yeah.
the day before. I'm like,
Yeah.
Carrie, it's okay.
And I think some of that is because of like everyone here like wants to be successful and they want to be the best they can and they're super competitive. But I've learned that you can be that, but also not dwell so much on what you can't change.
Perfect. So I want to bring something out about being present and focus on the process. And we're going to dig into this a little bit more. This is for the parents and for the coaches out there, especially, but players, you can put this into practice on your own. One of the things that I did when I was at the University of Houston, that aligns with what Carrie was saying, was we would make a deal before the game. You can't make it after the game because you already know the result. We would make a deal as a team before every game. We're going to go out. We're going to do the best we can. We cannot control the outcome. The referee may make a bad call. We might slip and we give up a goal, miss chances that we'd normally score. We think we can control the outcome, but we can't. So when the game is over, you've got 30 minutes in the locker room. If you want to go back and rehash the game and play those thoughts in your mind, you've got 30 minutes. Once you leave that locker room, our challenge was to leave the game there. Now, if it was a big win, we might extend that 30 minutes for a couple hours and go get ice cream with the entire team. But what it allowed was, if every player deals with this different. So let's say Carrie's in that locker room and she's upset about the game, and one of her teammates is laughing and joking. What do you think that's going to do to Carrie? That's not going to make her any happier. It's probably going to infuriate her, right? So we made a deal. The moment you walk out of that locker room, or when 30 minutes is up, if your other teammates have dealt with it and they're living in the present again and they're laughing, you don't have to be happy, but you cannot prevent them from being happy. And we made this deal, and it really worked wonders individually for our players and for our team. So hopefully you can put that in. And then I want to share the screen again. And Brad, what everybody wants to know about here is, well, Carrie's talking about how she grew. How are we going to grow? Because most people that are on this call today, these players, it's probably their first time, and they're literally starting their mental journey today. So what can you tell them about that? How are they going to grow?
Yeah, so the great news is we have the recipe that's going to help you learn anything. And I really mean anything. And it's also going to help you grow. And this is it. And it's really simple. It's very, very hard to do consistently, but this is it. One, we need consistent effort, not perfection, but consistent effort. And two, we need to use effective strategies, to be open to strategies, right? That we've had some pros we've worked with who go, when my confidence is low, I just double down on fitness. And they go, now I'm the most fit player on my team who still struggles with confidence, right? The big challenge a lot with athletes is to be open to strategies. So if you are willing to step out of your comfort zone and try strategies like the ones we're going to talk about tonight, then that's how you can grow. That's how you can improve. Your mind's going to tell you when it's hard, it's impossible. That's a lie. You can get better. You can grow. if you're willing to put in that consistent effort and use strategies.
Awesome. Well, then I have a little story that I want to tell everyone, and I'm going to share the screen for just a moment. And this is a story of the buffalo and the cow. So I want everyone to imagine you're out on the plains, Colorado, Kansas, wherever it may be, and this is wintertime. Okay. There's a herd of buffalo, there's a herd of cows, and there's this storm brewing. Okay. So imagine the storm's brewing, you can see it off in the distance. And what happens to the cows? They look, they see the storm brewing, and they go into panic mode. Their brain tells them to be afraid. So this, as the storm gets closer, it's appearing and it gets there. What do? They run away from the storm. And by running away, imagine this. The cow are running this way. The storm is going this way. And because they're trying to outrun the storm, guess what? Do you think the cows can outrun the storm? Absolutely not. They actually spend more time in the storm, in panic mode, in fear, because they are running away from it. Now, on the other hand, you see the herd of buffalo. They see that same storm brewing. As it's brewing and it's getting closer, the buffalo's mind is not going into fear and panic mode. The buffalo is getting prepared because they have innate strategies, and they see that storm, and as it gets close, the buffalo run right into the storm. So the storm's coming here, the buffalo run into the storm, and because they're going in opposite directions, the buffalo actually spend less time in the storm. They spend less time in the pain, in the suffering. Instead of trying to run away, they take it straight on. And that is why we're going to challenge you to be a buffalo. But Brad, I want you to elaborate on this, because you're not a cow, you're not a buffalo. What does this mean when we're telling our soccer resilience players, parents, and coaches to be buffalo?
Yeah, that we want to make clear, that being a buffalo has nothing to do with outcomes and results. It has nothing to do with wins, minutes played, goals, assists, shutouts, good grades on tests, nothing of that. What it does has everything to do with your willingness to take on a challenge, right? We know our brain's wired to protect us, right? And it wants us to avoid things so we don't have to feel emotionally bad or be in physical danger. So our challenge is to find ways to push through. The number one challenge for a lot of you players, their fear is making mistakes. So this is a great way, by steering your mind away from those negative thoughts, that 4-1, and going, you know what? I'm gonna be a buffalo today. I'm gonna go up and meet a new friend today. I'm gonna be a buffalo, and in practice, I'm gonna try to take someone on one-on-one, even if they strip the ball from me. I'm still gonna try. I'm gonna go ahead and try to shoot my weak foot today. So challenging yourself to do things that are uncomfortable. And the more and more you do this, the more and more you're training your brain, you're actually rewiring your brain to go, wait a minute, I'm more focused and motivated to take on the challenge and reward myself for that rather than fearing mistakes. That's a great, simple way to help us avoid mistakes and steer our mind and see the value in challenges, because the more and more challenges we take on, even if it's messy, even if it does not go well repeatedly, that's how we learn and grow, and that's how you get the results you're looking forward to.
Awesome. So, Carrie, I'm going to throw it to you. What are some challenges that you challenge yourself to do, or you have? It doesn't have to be maybe what you're doing right now, but let's think about from the time you were at Notre Dame to the time you got drafted, the different positions that you played. For us at Notre Dame, you were a center back and a holding mid, because we needed you in there because we didn't have options at the time. Even though you were the starting center back for the youth national team, we played you out of position because that's what our team needed. And then you've done some things like that. So it might be positionally or something else. What are some challenges that you take head on, or you've learned to do throughout your career?
I think the main one I can think of right now is when you play in the NWSL, you're playing against the best players in the world. So it's more so right now, who am I playing against? And everyone knows who Marta is. She's like the best to ever do it. I recently played against her a couple weeks ago, and it's like you have two options. You could either like be a cow or be a buffalo, and you can back off and like not want to go try to defend her because she might, beat you 1v1 and make you look silly, or you can just believe in yourself and go for it and do the best you can and treat her like any other player and just be like, I'm gonna focus on myself and be brave and do this. So that's like a real life example that happened a couple weeks ago of me just it's like Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan, like all these types of players I have to play against where I'm just like, I can kind of step back and like get scared that I'm gonna mess up and they're gonna make me look silly, or I can just like go do my thing and be brave and just like go into that storm and come out, no matter what, we'll come out learning something.
Awesome. I love that. Well, I'm excited because we're going to share another technique that we can put into action right now. Funny enough, as you'll see right now, it's called focus and it's 2 actions. So Brad, I'd love for you to explain this to everybody here today. What do we mean by focus and 2 actions?
Yeah, so I'll take you just briefly in the time machine. Going back to my days at Wake Forest, as you know, I struggled with performance anxiety, right? Had a lot of self-doubt, especially on game day. I get very nervous. So my coaches, like coaches, what to do, come by and go, "So Miller, how you feeling today?" Well, you know how I'm feeling. I'm freaking out on the inside. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed, right? A lot of negative thoughts coming in. But what do you think I said? Yeah, I was like, "I'm great, coach, ready to go." I'm like, "Did I sound convincing? Did my voice shake? Did I sound like I was okay?" So that because I wanted to convey that confidence, right? And so instead of focusing on how we're feeling today, like we can focus on how your body's doing, are you healthy, injured, those things. But as far as emotionally, it doesn't matter how we feel. We think our feelings before a game matters how we play, right? But it's not really true. Think about this. Have you ever felt really nervous before a game and played pretty well? Yeah. How about have you ever been really confident and did not play well? Yeah, we know that too, right? So feelings don't equal outcomes, actions equal outcomes. We want you to focus your mind on your actions, right? What we think about and what we're focusing on before games absolutely makes an impact on how we play. So here's a simple thing. What we want you to do is we want you to come up with 2 actions that you can do. And this will help you bring your mind to the present moment and help you be more focused on things you can control. As we talked about, our brain wants to go to outcomes and we focus on outcomes. We can't control that, and that gets our brain overwhelmed and in threat mode. So for example, as a defender, I would go, okay, Brad, you're going to focus on strong in tackles, challenge headers, strong in tackles, challenge headers. Okay. So when I get nervous, not if, when I get nervous, because our brain's wired to go negative. When I get nervous, I'm going to remind myself in pregame warmups, hey, Brad, strong in tackles, challenge headers. Strong in tackles, challenge headers. Okay, good, good. Okay. During the game, I get nervous. Same thing. Bring it back to those 2 actions. If I get cleaned out and frustrated, same thing. I can use it to keep my mind in the present moment and focus on what I can control. Lastly, remember I said I'm going to be strong in tackles, not win every tackle. I'm going to challenge headers, not win every header, because I can't control if I win every tackle or win every header, but I can control if I go in strong for those tackles and challenge headers. And that puts our mind focused on what we can control. Carrie, what are 2 actions you might focus on in a game to help you feel more present and focused, ready to go?
2 things that I feel confident in and I know I have like 100% control of, my work ethic. So just like always doing the work I need to do defensively, offensively, getting in the spaces I need to be quickly, and then communicating and organizing because I know that I like believe in myself to do that and know it brings value, whether I'm playing like garbage or scoring an own goal or under hitting balls. I know that I can communicate and organize and that can still bring value to the team. Same with working really hard. Those are 2 things that even if I'm not at my best that day, I have control over them and that they still can bring value.
That's
Awesome.
huge. Now I want to give same idea. This goes for parents and coaches as well. So if you're one of the coaches on the call, think about what do you want to get accomplished? So sometimes I remember we have a big game and I would be so amped for the game and so excited that I would have to spend time in my office before we walked out to the stadium and work on breathing and show a calm because the team was going to feed off of me. Well, same thing goes for you as coaches. If you as a coach or a parent, you are out there and you're chirping at the referee and you're really negative, guess what? So's your team's going to be the same way. Your players are going to be the same way. And I have an even better one. And this is for all you parents out there. 2 actions. Whether you want to believe it or not, you're probably the most influential people, more influential than the coach at times, to your players, to your son or daughter. They're looking over for you on the sideline for validation for everything. So some parents, I would say, here's your two actions. You're going to be positive with your body language, and you're going to be encouraging, which means you're not going to chirp at the ref. You're just going to focus on that. For some parents, I tell them, you're going to be present, meaning you're at your kid's game. Put your phone away. Watch your kid play. And that can be an action that you can focus on. I want to, now, this is part of our foundations course, so I don't want you to talk about all of it, but Carrie, I love, even to this day, you have a routine with your parents, right? On game day and messaging that you share. Just share a little bit about that, because that's part of your routine and part of your actions, right?
Yeah, my parents have been very supportive over the years. They've kind of learned that I don't need the added stress of like feeling like I don't want to disappoint them or anything. So they'll always just tell me to have fun in the game. Both of them will text me separately and be like, good luck in the game, have fun. And then after the game, they just send me like positive words of encouragement. And it's kind of funny. Like if I don't play the best, the message is still nice and positive, but when I play really well, I can tell because like you were excellent. But if I wasn't excellent, they don't necessarily lie. They're just like good work or whatever. But yeah, I just feel just positive support from them and the encouragement to have fun and do my best versus feeling like I need to get a certain result to be good enough, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, I was so excited for you to share that with even just that little glimpse of it, because it's rare that you have parents that go all the way through the process with you, watching you from a kid to then high level club to youth World Cups to Notre Dame and now playing professionally. And it's almost like they've relaxed more, or you've taught them. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
want to put words in your
They
mouth.
weren't perfect. I've had to, like when I was little and my dad would push me, I just wanted it to come from myself. I wanted to do it for me and myself. And it was nice to have their guidance, but I definitely just didn't want that extra pressure. I had it from my coaches and I put it on myself. I didn't need anyone else putting that on me where I then felt like I had to like make them proud. Now I feel in my heart they're proud no matter what I do, like an own goal last night. Still proud, which is a really good feeling.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Brad, I'm really excited about the next part. I'm going to share my screen again, because what would a webinar be without a little love for our guy Ted Lasso right here? And so I'm gonna turn it over to you, Brad. This is one of my favorite exercises that you do.
You got it. I keep forgetting, Diego, to put on the shades and the whistle. Then I could maybe a little closer pull it off. So our friend Ted there in the middle, he's going to give us an idea of what I'd like you to do. So for those who are driving, obviously, please keep driving. Don't do this. But for those who are not, if you're able to, I'd love for you to stand up, please. You can please stand for me. If
And if
not,
not,
no
just
worries,
sit
but if
up
you're able
straight.
to, yep, whatever works best. All right. So what I'd like you to do, please, just like Ted Lasso there, I'd like you to cross your arms. Please cross your arms. Awesome, and you can put them down. Thank you so much. All right, if you please would cross your arms again. Okay, great, thanks. Please put them down. Okay, this last time, I want you to cross your arms, but please put the opposite arm on top. Cross your arms with the opposite arm on top. Opposite arm on top. Okay, great. Thank you so much. You can sit down. All right, we're done. Thank you so much. Great job, everybody. Okay, so if you can put in the chat, if you want to unmute yourself, what did it feel like the first 2 times you crossed your arms? What'd that feel like?
And if you don't want to type, just come off of mute. What normal
Yeah.
says. Nice. What else?
Natural. Uh-huh. Regular. Did it without thinking. Yeah, great participation. Yeah, it felt that way. How many times in your life do you think you've crossed your arms the way you did the first 2 times.
I was gonna say, I felt like I've done it a million times.
A million times, yeah. Yeah. So a lot, right? Often more than we can count. Well, what did it feel like the third time we crossed your arms with the opposite arm on top? What did that feel like? A little hard, different, uh-huh. Unusual, weird. Had to think through it. Yeah, unnatural, strange. Yeah, yeah. Well, how many times in your life do you think you've crossed your arms with that opposite arm on top? Never, virtually never, not many. Yeah, we don't really do it, right? Well, what if we did an experiment? We said, okay, for the next 6 months, 3 times a day, you're going to cross your arms with the opposite arm on top. What do you think it would be like and feel like after 6 months? More natural. Yeah. Maybe more natural than before, not as hard. Familiar, get used to it. Yeah. Well, that's exactly what mental training is like. Some of these ideas, they sound weird. They just do, right? You're like 2 actions, breathing. Like, what are you talking about? It can feel kind of weird. Your challenge is to push through the weird. That's just the brain not liking something new and be a buffalo and go, you know what? I'm going to try what Carrie suggested. Huh. I'm going to try that out. You know, as a coach, I'm going to try Diego's idea. And by doing that, that's how you allow yourself to grow and then you build your skills. So Carrie, what was something that maybe you learned early on in mental fitness that did feel kind of weird to you, but now does feel more natural?
Maybe for me, visualization. Like
Yeah.
struggled with it. I had never done it before. Um, and now I feel like if I'm super, super nervous the night before a game, I'll like actually go through the game and then I'll actually like make a mistake in the game in my vision and then overcome it. And that's really helpful for me. It just kind of calms me down because I'm like, okay, I actually like might see this tomorrow and now I know I'm gonna be okay. But at first I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? It was kind of unfamiliar. So yeah, totally
Yeah.
sure.
So any advice you would have for people listening to this going, this does sound weird, Carrie? Any advice you'd have for them?
My advice is I'm a walking, talking example of it working. So don't give up.
Love
Awesome.
it. Love it. Well, not only are we not going to give up, we're excited. Now, this is the part of tonight's webinar where we get to share with you um, how you can start working on these things on your own. Well, not on your own, with our help. So we're super excited to have this partnership with South Texas. And so what does this mean? And I'm going to go through that briefly. So the first thing that we offer is the foundations course for players. Now, I'm going to go through all this, and as I'm doing this, I'm also going to apply some discount codes in the chat. So don't feel like you have to write all this down. It's all in the chat, but just understand this. So what our foundations course for players is, I'm going to get into it in a minute. Think of all these bite-sized little techniques that we've taught you today. These are short videos and a playbook that I'm going to run through briefly that help you with your game. But the best thing is you can do it on your own time whenever you want. So here's how awesome your state is. South Texas has agreed to subsidize this for you. So our foundations course for team is usually $450. South Texas is paying $300 of that. So your price is $150 for a team. You've got 15 players on your team. That's $10 a player for the entire foundations course. You can use the code STX-team24 or just click on the link that is in the chat. Let's say your team doesn't want to do this as an entire team. No problem. We sell the player foundations course for $50, but again, South Texas is picking up the slack. They'll pay $30. For you, it's only $20. Same thing with the coach foundations course. Same thing with the parent foundations course. and you just use the codes STX-player, STX-coach, or STX-parent, or click on the links that are in the chat, and that'll take you directly to with the codes applied. So what is it that you get? Well, we're going to go through this briefly. Every course comes with a player's and a coach's manual. So this is an example of the coach's manual. You can see the playbook overview, the 8 different sessions that are in here. And here's an example of what the sessions are. So for here, player instructions. This is how easy it is for you. You're going to complete the kickoff quiz. You're going to watch these 2 videos, steering your mind for better performance and stay cool under pressure. Now, the cool part about these videos, it's not Brad talking everything. He's on here. I'm in a couple of them. But you're hearing from pros like Carrie, like Morgan, like Ian, who are in here talking about real life situations that they've gone through or are continually working on, just like you hear from Carrie tonight. Then you're going to spend a couple weeks practicing it. Coaches have their own set of instructions as well. And this is an idea of what this looks like. So we're not adding a bunch on your plate. Just like tonight, little bite-sized tools and techniques where you're learning to identify your brain's negative bias. You read a couple short paragraphs, you work on the resilience builder. This example is like, Carrie talked about it. If you make one poor pass, your brain tries to tell you I'm awful at passing. If Carrie hit one long ball that didn't get to the forward that she wanted to, her brain would try to tell her, you can't do that. And she can challenge that negative thought. I've completed a lot of passes today. One poor pass doesn't mean I'm awful at passing. It means I made a bad pass. And I'm going to make my adjustments to make sure I'm better on the next one. So those are what it looks like. And here's the best part. It's not just 1 or 2 courses. We've got our foundations course 1 and 2, and these are meant to be, you do the foundations in the fall 1 and foundations 2 in the spring, or the other way around, depending on when you get started. And then you graduate to our essentials course, and then the premier and the elite course. We want to carry you through your mental fitness journey, just like Carrie's been going through and continues to go on her mental fitness journey. So I'll leave this up for a second as well, even though I put links in the chat. If you've got your phone out there and you want to take a picture of this, it'll take you directly to the online store. I'm not going to leave that up for a long time, because you can just go to soccerresilience.com, click on the online store, or like I said, all the links that are in here. And we will be sharing this recording with Jen, Noah, and all this the executives at South Texas, who then can forward this on to all of you. So before we get on to questions, maybe from hearing from Carrie, I do want to share a little bit more, because if you go to our Soccer Resilience website, and like I said, the online store will take you to where all those links are. But there's one other thing. How awesome would it be to work one-on-one with Carrie or one of our other ambassadors? If you go to our website and you click on one-on-one coaching, you have the ability to work with ambassadors. You can see here's our pricing. You can see Carrie and Morgan and Brianna and Michelle and Ian and Sam. You have the opportunity to work one-on-one and be coached by a professional soccer player. So all you have to do is come in here, submit your request. We'll get back to you and we'll start the process. Brad, is there anything I missed about the different ways that you can use our online tools for our players, parents, and coaches in South Texas?
No, you got it all.
Awesome. That means I'm getting better. I'm getting better at my job. See, even I'm learning. Well, then this is one of my favorite parts of the evening. We've got about 10 minutes left. For all you players, parents, coaches, whether it's in the chat or coming off mute, Brad and I are happy to answer your questions, but I know the real questions are going to go to Carrie. So who's got a question for Carrie? She's our superstar, rock star on there. Now, if you don't want to put your question out there for everyone, you can send a direct message to Carrie, or you can even send it to me and I'll ask her. So I'll open this up. Oh, I see that. Any suggestions on how to help goalkeepers, goalies?
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Do you
while we
guys,
think
I feel
about
like
that,
a coach might have more suggestions than me.
yeah. Well, while I think about that, well, I bet you can answer this one. Do you have any pregame rituals that help you mentally prepare outside of what we discussed?
Mm.
I like to control everything I can to get ready for the game. So in terms of like my sleep, my preparation, what I'm eating, just making sure I'm like in the right mindset, ready to go play. I think the word preparation is so key because then it just makes me feel ready to go and makes me feel like I'm in the zone and this routine makes me feel calm. I'm not a keeper and I've never been a keeper, but the one thing about being a defender that I was talking about last night is when you're playing closer to the goal as a keeper or defender, more often than not, you're kind of in the mix when a goal gets scored on you. And I think the one thing I will say, as someone who was in the mix last night for 3 goals going in, you have to remember that it's a team sport and that you don't want to dwell on that mistake too long. And these tools and strategies that you can learn from soccer resilience are really helpful because you kind of have to bounce back quickly, especially as a keeper being the last line of defense. Obviously, sometimes people might look at you like, oh, you should have saved that type of like you might feel like that a little bit more, kind of how I felt last night, where it's like, oh, I should have blocked that. Um, so I think it helps to be able to move on really, really quick and find a way to hit the reset button, which is something that soccer resilience has taught me. So while I'm not a keeper, that's some of my advice.
Yeah, and that's great because that was the first thing I was going to go to was goalkeepers have to have short memories.
Mhm.
Now, I've always been an attacking player, so I'm going to go ahead and just put it out there. We have the luxury of if you miss a wide open shot, everyone's like, "Oh," but they don't look at it the same way as if you make a mistake in the back because they're like, "Oh, you'll get the next one. You'll get the next one." Versus a goalkeeper or a defender, that next one you're pulling the ball out of the back of the net. You have to have a short memory, and I think goalkeeper is one of the most mentally challenging sport or positions in all of sports because of that there's only one goalkeeper that plays. If you're a field player, you can play different positions. You can move around. You get help. It had to go through, and Carrie said it best. It had to go through 10 other people before it got to you as the goalkeeper. You've got to remind yourself that, you know. So I think that's something. And I do believe we'll have a goalkeeper course coming out in the very near future. That's something that is in the works. Carrie, what is your toughest mental challenge to overcome is another question.
Um, I think, well, I have two. One is more of an individual one, and one's more of a team one. So I actually got cut from Houston Dash. I think that was my 3rd year in the NWSL, and it was kind of a shock. I did not think I was going to get cut, and I had to overcome that and kind of start over. My contract got terminated. I had no job. I wasn't getting paid, and I had to wait for a team to call me to bring me into their club, and I ended up going to North Carolina where I only played in I think 2 games out of like maybe 24. So I kind of just sat there patiently and worked really hard and was a really good bench player and good teammate and cheered on my teammates that were like playing in front of me, and it taught me a lot about um just being ready for your opportunity and also how valuable I was as someone who didn't get a lot of playing time, but was the one cheering from the bench, that those girls on the field were not, they wouldn't have been as successful without someone like me pushing them. So I learned a lot about like my new role and have that being so about like just as valuable as me if I was a starter. And then team wise, last year I came to the Chicago Red Stars and we lost a lot of games by a lot of goals and we were in last place pretty much the whole year. And that was really hard because you keep going to practice every day wanting to win and help your team and do well for the fans, and you keep losing and it becomes really defeating. So you have to kind of like control what you can, stick together with your teammates. Honestly, just like do the best you can and try to learn and grow as much as you can. Obviously, that gets really, really hard. But the more you just work at it, or for me, I like to journal a lot or do a lot of breathing and reflecting. And I just tried to do the best I could, but that was definitely a tough situation. But the Red Stars are doing great this year. So we stayed resilient, which is great.
That's so awesome. And look, you're getting some comments in there. Thank you for your openness. It's so relatable. And
Oh, you're welcome.
this is part of the reason we love our ambassadors. They've gone through this and they want to be able to share with you. So you know you're not alone. This is normal. And I'll be honest with you, this is more common than not. I think more players, especially the higher level you get to, this is more common than not. So I think it's fantastic. And I do want to, another side note, I was no longer on the Houston staff when Carrie got cut. That was not me, just so you know.
Okay, it was a blessing for me. It ended up giving me the fresh start I needed. And
It
I
was.
used it as that, which a lot of people might have been more defeated by that. I actually used it as like a propeller for me to like, you know, kickstart my career.
Think about it. I saw a difference in you. You were playing with a big weight when I was there, when you were with us, and we
Oh
talked
yeah.
about that. Remember that? We would talk about
Yeah.
these things like, Carrie, just play. I know how good you are. Just
All
play.
right.
Go for it. And then when you got to whatever happened, all that work you did, and when you figured out what was best for you, you started to flourish. And that's where you went from only playing 2 games to getting in more games, and then getting bought. And then you were a starter with Angel City. And now, like, you grew into that, and because of your patience.
Yeah. Yeah. Takes time. It sometimes takes time, but it's so worth it.
All right, we have time for a few more questions. How do you control your mind when a ref does a bad call or bad decision? You want to take this one first, Carrie?
I do, because in college I was not good at handling my frustration, but when I mentor people through Soccer Resilience, a lot of the girls I work with, they're like, well, the ref this, and I'm like, I have a long list on my notebook and I always just read it out, and I'm like, these are things you cannot control, and the ref is right here on my list, and you kind of just have to let it be. Also, in the NWSL now, you get a yellow card for talking to the ref, like having an attitude and talking back. So my lips are zipped and I just move on because I don't want a yellow card, which is great, but you can't control it. And so you're just like, how can I bounce back? If I don't like the call, can't change it. There's no point in arguing. I just try to like connect my next passes and do well, which I've come a long way, because yeah, I used to like kind of argue with the refs, but it's not worth my energy anymore. I like controlling what I can.
And I'll say, from the coach's point of view, for parents and coaches, referees are humans. Have conversations with them. Do not yell at them. As a coach, I've learned throughout the years, and I'm a pretty calm person outside of soccer, but I get fired up when I'm coaching and when I'm playing. I'm very, very ultra competitive. Shoot, I still think I have bruises on my shins at practice from Carrie and I going at it a little bit here and there. But if you have learned to have conversations with referees and ask them questions, what did you see there, referee? Perfect, thank you, just wanted clarification. You will get more out of referees that way than combating them. So.
Can I throw a question at you, please, just before
Yes.
I shoot off? Thank you very much for all of it. It's really, really, I suppose, heartwarming and exciting to hear you guys talking about this. My background, I've been in Katie now for 3 years, but background in England, director of sport at schools, 11 to 18, and I've come over here, and the pressure on your youngsters is greater than I ever thought possible. What age do you start doing some of this mental well-being? Because I know now, I'm going to be working this with my 9-year-old and my 11-year-old, and my 9-year-old has decided he just wants to start being a goalie. So I'm really looking forward to the goalie one, because I'm not enjoying that at the moment, I can tell you. However, what age are you starting to see some of these? I'm definitely taking this to our club and within some of the schools that I work at. But what age are you working with? What's the youngest you guys are seeing?
Yeah, so our courses are designed for U12 and up, but that is where the parent and the coaches courses come in. So I always recommend, if you have U11 and younger, have your coaches, have your parents take those courses, because they can start implementing them. They're going to be more influential than the pros and our courses at that time. We started it with my son's team when he was 12 years old, and that is the perfect age for them, where they're just mature enough and developed enough. And I'll be honest with you, U11 girls can probably handle it, because girls mature faster than boys. Like, I don't know. I think sometimes the U13 girls are the same maturity level as U18 boys at times. And that's me being a boy. But yes, that's a great question. And I want to piggyback on that. Somebody asked, how long will this offer last? These prices are good for the month of October. Okay, so as long as you want to take advantage, South Texas has put in a sizable investment so that we can get this in the hands of you, the clubs and players. So I saw a couple other people. Any other last questions before we wrap it up here? And thank you for coming off mute, Francesca.
You're welcome. Are we able to access the recording?
I'm going to send it to Noah and Jen, and South Texas will send it out to the entire membership. Perfect. Any other questions? Oh, one new message. What do we got? What are good ways to mentally come back from a bad injury? Brad, you want to talk about this, and then the injury course that is also potentially coming soon?
Yeah, this is something that's really common, and our pro ambassadors have gone through this a lot, even if it doesn't look like it. And so we are definitely looking to have an injury course come out soon. I'll maybe share a couple of things, and Kara, I'd really like to hear. Actually, Kara, I'm turning it to you because you, as a pro and as a college player, youth player, I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of different injuries. What are some things over the years you've just learned that you might recommend to a couple, maybe one or two ways to help a player bounce back on mentally when they come back, right? How can they mentally be ready when they come back from an injury?
Okay, three things just came to my mind off the top of my head. Give yourself grace because it's going to take time, and celebrate the small wins over time because it's going to take time. But if you have a good day, or you know, accomplish something, or you get off crutches, or you're able to run or whatever, just really, really celebrate those little victories. Oh, I forgot my last one, but I just remembered it. You are more than an athlete, and lean into your other identities, especially when you're injured and you can't fully be out playing. Remind yourself that there are other identities that you have that are super valuable, and to lean into those, and to not punish yourself for being injured, but to actually like thrive in all these other areas of your life and other hobbies and other things you really, really like to do.
That's
Awesome.
awesome. And Diego, actually, one thing I do want to pop in, and thank you, Carrie, for sharing that, is you have an opportunity when you're injured to really work on your mental game. You really do. You've got some extra time. And so if you're taking our courses, great time. Watch those videos, go through the playbook, and challenge yourself. As Carrie said, really take note of those small changes. Hey, I'm able to walk now. I'm able to jog. I'm able to touch a ball, and challenge yourself to say being patient is absolutely hard, right? So you can grow your mental game. You can grow your perseverance by telling yourself, every time I'm patient, I'm strengthening my perseverance. So on the field, when we get down early, I make a mistake, I've got more patience now to manage that. So all the ways you manage the mental challenges in your rehab, take note and say, I'm strengthening my mental game. Every time you're starting to get better, have a little bit of a setback, go, hey, just like in a game, but I can bounce back. I'm going to talk to my, trainer who's helping me get better, the doctor, my parents, get back on track. I can do this. And by the time you come back from injury, you absolutely have a chance to have a stronger mental game than before you got injured. So try to look at it that way.
Awesome. Thank you, Brad. And thank you everyone for being here. Like I said, we will get this recording out to everybody. With the email, we'll send out those discount codes with the links if you missed them during the presentation. Take advantage now. Like I said, prices will go up. We've seen a massive spike in interest over the last few months. South Texas is the second state association that we've signed in the last couple of weeks, because we just all want to get these tools into the hands of our players, parents, and coaches. So, Carrie, any parting words that you want to leave for, especially our young players?
I'm jealous that you guys have the opportunity to learn these things while you're still so young, because I wish I had that.
Brad?
Yeah, to remember that all of these things that you learn from our courses, this webinar tonight, not only is it going to strengthen your confidence and your resilience and your performance, it's going to help your mental well-being too. You get both things through this, which is going to help you manage and have that resilience off the field as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here. I'm really excited to be partnering with South Texas. Like I said, it was my home for 5 years, and it's a big part of me and always will be. So we're super excited. Everyone have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.